So if everyone's okay, I'm gonna start now. Yeah, so as I just mentioned, so I'm just gonna be covering seed collection protocols, the way that TRCRC has been carrying it out. And it's just gonna be kind of like going through the different protocol stages that we go through before, during, and after. And then I'll then explain a little bit more about the upcoming workshops where you can learn a little bit more about the after process. So yeah, so I'm going to be covering seed collection operations. I'm going to be doing covering seed surveys, seed collections, safety protocols, looking at some aspects of seed viability and some aspects of seedling monitoring. The last two topics is going to be covered at more length in our future workshops. So yeah, seed collection operation. So why do we do this, right? So why does it matter that we collect seeds from rainforest trees? You know, what is the objective of all of it? Is number one is to increase the germination rate of Dipterocarpaceae seeds. So what I mean by that is if you can, you know, as you can see in the short image um, on the left, is that the Dipterocarpaceae seeds, like if one tree is flowering during a mass fruiting season, you would imagine that it's between like 1 to 2,000 seeds per tree. And these seeds are extremely susceptible to seed predation. So out of these 1 to 2,000 seeds, they're being predated before they fall and after they fall. And out of all of this, it's likely that only a handful, if not just a few, will survive. So having said that, this is why human intervention is required if we would like to increase the germination rate of these seeds. It's also important to identify the quality of the seed source. So obviously, when the trees are flowering, you'll have different stages of when it will drop its seeds. So let's say like a tree starts flowering and the first batch of seeds that fall, these ones don't tend to be the highest quality ones. They're usually the ones that are the heaviest predated ones. So then usually when it's the second or third round of seeds that fall, that are the highest quality. And of course, the overall objective of collecting these seeds and bringing them into our nursery is to improve the survival rate of seedlings. By doing this, we try and improve the IUCN status and we improve the risk of extinction for these seeds. Uh, and we also use this to prepare planting material for restoration efforts nationwide. So that's the main objectives of why we carry out seed collections. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be covering the before, during, and after. So this is quite important, the before part, because it kind of gives you a sense of clarity and a plan moving forward. So before carrying out any seed collection expedition, it's really important to set objectives. Like, are you planning to focus only on dipterocarp species? Are you looking to pick up seeds or seedlings from other species as well? And this will just kind of give you a clear outline when you're out in the field. Because obviously, when you're doing seed collections in the forest, it's best to have a clear plan. Um, TRCRC operates in Malaysia, and for collecting anything from forest reserves. So if we're taking anything out of the forest reserve, it's very important that we have permission from the relevant forestry agency or from the forest district officer. So just on the image that you see here, this is our TRCRC field staff with the rangers of the Selangor Forestry Department. They came to do a recce with us. This is for a different study, but this is just an example. And of course, it's important to get the permit applications to obtain all necessary documentation when carrying out field work in the forest. So in Malaysia, the forestry departments are really fussy about what you take out of the forest. We've had rangers come into our nursery asking like where we got the seedlings from and all of these things. So it's just better to be on the right side of it rather than not. However, if you're not collecting seeds from forest reserves and you're collecting seeds from privately owned land, then of course this process is not required. But this is something that we do cover before we enter the forest reserves. Okay, and then seed survey during. I don't know why the image on the left is not coming up, but that's fine. So before we can carry out seed collections, it's important to do surveys to find out what your objective is and what potential tree that you want to collect from. So a couple of tips for surveying in the early stages is, first of all, is to start from an existing trail or a route that's easily accessible. It's best to try and utilize higher ground to look for the canopy. So for example, if you're let's say like if you're in a more urban area and there's a highway going past the forest reserve, it's probably best to use that high ground. Or if you're in the forest and you know that the highest elevation of that mountaintop is somewhere you can access, then that's the best place to look for the canopy, because that just makes it a lot easier. And then number three is to target and estimate the tree canopies that you're looking at. So it's best to prepare beforehand with a map to understand which section you're looking that you're looking at. And let's say you have noticed that, you know, in one section where the canopy that's green, and then you see mosaics of like white, yellow, red, and you know that there are flowering species there, then you can already kind of mark it and have like some points on your map to understand that this is the target area that you'll be looking at. And some equipment that I would suggest is binoculars. So this is to obviously have a look at the seeds that are coming out of the tree, whether it's the target species that you're looking at. Obviously, if it's a dipterocarp, it's quite easy to spot because they have wings. A distance laser pointer. This helps you to gauge the distance. GPS location, and a map, of course, and if possible, a drone, because we find that drone recce's are in the early, like in the first stage of surveys, is probably the most efficient way to have a look. So drone and binoculars would be the two main things that you really, really need to look at the potential tree that you're looking to collect seeds from. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So this is just an example. So when I said the high ground, so this is what I mean, because then the canopy is on your eye level. So when the canopy is on your eye level, it's just a lot easier to use the drone and to use the binoculars to have a look at exactly which tree that you would like to survey that's flowering. So what does a flowering tree look like, right? So it's you would need to kind of have an eye for it. So typically, obviously, the rainforest canopy is usually a blanket of green. But during mass flowering seasons, which means that it's a synchronous flowering of specific trees. Let's say you have one Hopia helferi in one, let's say 100 hectares, and let's say the Hopia helferi in that area, all of them will be seeding at the same time. So that's what masting is. So it's synchronous flowering, and basically you'll see the slight changes, like color. You'll see some slight coloration changes in the canopy. So the colors can vary between white and yellow and red. And in this photo, it kind of looks a little bit purple. But yeah, so that's how you spot a tree that's flowering. So so the images on the left are images taken with a drone. So in terms of drone flying, obviously, like if we were together in a proper workshop, we'd be flying a drone together. But I'll have to talk you through it. So basically, to get the GPS location of a flowering tree with a drone, if you see the image on the bottom left, you have to fly the drone directly on top of the tree. So when you have a clear image of the crown, you take a snap an image of it, and that image, your drone will have the GPS location and tag of that tree. And in terms of surveying the flowering, I usually fly it from the side, and then from side on, go a little closer. And from there, you can see, let's say the image on the bottom right, you'll see how the seeds look like from up close. Alternatively, if you do not have a drone, this is something that can be done with a binoculars. This can be done from the higher level, as I mentioned, which is a much better vantage point than from the forest floor. But either way, you'll still be able to use a binoculars to have a look, to see what the seeds look like. So you'll be looking at images like I'm showing you here when you're looking for your initial flowering to spot and identify the tree that you would like to collect seeds from. Okay, and data collection. So this is very, very important for us in terms of like how we work with high conservation value trees. We always look for the parent tree. So once we've identified a potential tree, we have the GPS location of the tree from the top. We then go on the ground to identify exactly the species and confirm exactly what species it is. So in order to do that, we collect samples for tree ID. If we're able to identify the tree with a botanist on the ground, then obviously then we don't really need to take too many samples for tree identification, but we still take samples anyway for our records. But if you're taking samples for tree identification post recce, then it's really important to take very clear pictures, which I'll explain in my next slide. And number two, GPS location. So on the image, the second image here, you'll see the GPS on the bark of the tree. So the reason why we do this is the most accurate way to get a reading of the GPS location of the tree is to put it directly on the base of the trunk for the most accurate reading. And then obviously we tag the tree for future reference, as you can see in that image as well. So the image on the top with the parang, so that's how we collect samples of the resin. So we use a parang and we have like a slight hit on the tree to remove the first like layer, I guess. And then from there you can see the resin that comes out, and we take notes on the color. We take pictures, and we also take notes on any smells that come out, because that's how we can identify the species of tree. The image at the bottom is one of our researchers with the binoculars or monocular, having a look at the treetop. So that's also another way to just make sure that you are able to see whether the trees are flowering and to look at the leaf samples that you'll be collecting. Okay, so how we document samples. So this is just an example of how to take clear images. So the best is to have some kind of measurement on the paper, so you can see the size of the seed or leaf that you're taking pictures of. So clear images for identification out of the field is really important, especially to get accurate ID on which species that you're looking at. Okay, so clear images of the leaf. If you have the seed, take clear images of the seed as well. Images of the leaf should be while the leaves are still green, and whereby the leaf veins are still visible, because that's the best way to have an idea of the tree species. And additional images of the bark, which you can take from the trunk, and the resin. Okay, so now you've identified the tree. So you've done your drone recce. You've had a look you've already identified which tree you want to collect seeds from. You've gone down on the ground to collect samples to ID exactly what tree it is, and now you know what tree you're looking at, right? So this is a tree that we've been monitoring, the Diabolanops aromatica, otherwise known as the pokok kapur. So this has been flowering over the last like 4 weeks or so, I would say. And the next stage is now monitoring the mother tree. So the image is taken in order, a sequence of events. So the first image on the top left was the first spot aerial recce of this tree. The second image on the top right is a side-on view of this tree. The bottom left, wait, yeah, the bottom left is a close-up. So I flew the drone a lot closer to take a picture of this tree. And then on the bottom right is what the tree looks like 4 weeks on. So what you can see here is that the yellow tips are now starting to brown. So when the yellow tips are starting to brown, this means that these seeds are starting to be more mature, which means that they're very, very likely to be ready to fall or be collected within, I would say, a few days to a week. This is, so you have to kind of monitor the tree that you're looking to collect from. So that, yeah, the ideal is that when the wingtips become brown and the seed is green, which I'll show you in my next image here. So the dry Balanops aromatica. So this is what it looks like now that it's come down from the tree. So I haven't gone up to collect this. This is just fallen on the forest floor, and this is what it looks like when it's basically ready, right? So the wings have turned brown, and the seed in the center, it still has its green. So there's obviously some caveats here. Obviously, with different tree species, you'll be looking at different things. Like for example, if you're looking at a Sharia Macroptera, it's like, it has like a hard shell casing around it. So different species will require different handling. But this is just the kind of general protocols on what to follow. So there are a few methods of seed collection. So first method is you use a big shot slingshot, which I'll show you in the next slide. This is basically a really, really big slingshot, which has like an 8-foot tall pole that you pull the slingshot down, shoot up to the canopy, and then basically shake the tree to bring the seeds down. That's your first method. The second method is tree climbing. Obviously, tree climbing will be very varied according to who does it. If you're doing tree climbing with an indigenous community, they won't have any equipment or tools, and they're, very acclimated to climbing trees. But if you're doing tree climbing with professional arborists, they'll have their equipment that they use. Either like they usually have like spiked shoes with obviously a lot of rope, and there's a lever that they have. So it's it's a lever that basically you step up, and then it brings you up bit by bit. The third method is to wait, and that's where you can collect seeds and wildlings from the forest floor. So data collection again. So obviously, because we are working with high conservation value trees, and we try and be as accurate as possible with our data collections, we document the seed germination stages for future study, and we always keep record of what we collect. So this is just an example. So image 1 is the Dipterocarpus aplanatus, which is otherwise known as the curling down basar. As you can see, when the seeds fall and when the seeds are collected from the forest floor, sometimes you'll see that they may have already germinated slightly. So you'll see like roots starting to come out from the seed. And for some of them, you may already see a couple of leaves coming out already. The second image is the Dipterocarpus caudiferus, which is otherwise known as the Kering pute. Same thing again. You'll see some of the seeds that you collect from the forest floor would have already started germinating. And the image number 3 is the Sharia Hopifolia, otherwise known as Sharia kuning jantan. So as I said, different seeds will require different ways of processing, but this is just a general overview of how to do it. So just showing you a short clip of how we use a big shot in the field.
It's ready for collection and the fruits are ripe. But what we have to do is we have to basically shake the tree to make sure we can collect fresh seeds so that the pigs and whatnot animals that are competing with us do not get them first.
So yeah, that's just a short clip of how the Big Shot works. If you are interested to learn a little bit more about the Big Shot, I suggest going on YouTube. There's lots of different tutorials on there, and you can have a look and see how to get that done. The Big Shot you would have to order from overseas. I don't think they sell them locally, so I'm not sure that it may arrive in time for this masting season. But for the future, if you wanted to have a look at that, you just type in Big Shot slingshot. Okay. And of course, last but not least, most importantly, is our safety precautions. So, number one, we don't operate in the rain. Falling branches are a safety hazard. That's why everyone's wearing helmets. So, PPE is very important. Um, Number two, always keep track of time. Let's say if your entry point to where your mother tree is 3 to 4 hours of trek in. So, ensure that enough exit time is also allocated to get out. So, and also make sure that each entrance and each exit is recognizable. I know that some of you here have mentioned that you have a little bit of experience with forests work. Some of you have no experience. Some of you have a lot of experience. But so I'm just going to go with the general precautions to make sure that all the work that is ever done is always done safely. And number three is an expedition plan. Let's say it requires you to spend longer than a day in the field, then it requires you to have a plan of how many days you plan to be out there, what is the equipment that you need. But if, let's say, for most of us, it's likely to just be a 1 day in and out kind of thing. Again, we still need to have a plan, entry and exit plan, timing. In any cases of emergency, it's really important to have the numbers of your closest hospital, bomba, and police, just in case. Um, Even the most experienced of us can experience emergencies in the forest. So it's just always good to have these numbers with you. And then number five, collect what you can. Don't risk yourselves for collecting seeds. So let's say if your mother tree is literally like on a cliff or like somewhere where it's not that safe, please don't risk your lives just to collect seeds from that tree. And then number six is obviously wear bright colored clothing or reflective vests. So when we're carrying out flora work, it's different from carrying out fauna work. So if we are looking to survey fauna, of course you want to be as camouflaged as possible so the animal doesn't see you. But because we're carrying out flora work, it's very important that you are visible in case anything happens. So definitely wear bright colored clothing or reflective vests. Okay, so that's I apologize if I'm going through this quickly, but if you have any questions, you can just stop me at any time, or you can ask at the end of my presentation. Okay, so you've gone through the drone recce and you've done the survey. You've identified the species that you want. You've monitored and you've done the seed collection, right? So now you've collected a whole bunch of seeds, and this is the process now after. So from the seed source from the seed collection expedition, it needs to reach the nursery at minimum, at maximum 2 to 3 days after the collection's made. The reason why is because these seeds are recalcitrant and they don't last very long, and so storage is quite difficult for these seeds. So they do need to be germinated pretty quickly. And we'll have some future workshops toward the end of the month on how to handle these seedlings to prevent seed damage. And we'll in that webinar we'll also be covering some nursery management of like potting materials, nursery management, and the nursery flow, and that will be by our project manager in our Sabah operation. So this will be covered in a lot more depth, but just to kind of put it out there, the after process of the seed collection is very important, that the seeds are germinated quickly. So this is also and just another example of how seed processing looks like. So first stage is to sort out your seeds by de-winging, so removing the wings and cleaning the dirt off from the field, and then soak it in fungicide to prevent infection and pest damage. This is the Diabolanops aromatica, which is very susceptible to pest damage because they are usually very attracted to the resin, which smells really good. And then next stage is to sow the seeds in a germination bed. So as you can see in the image on the bottom left. So seed viability. So this is also very important. So as I mentioned earlier, dipterocarp seeds are extremely susceptible to predation from various insects and animals pre and post dispersal. So the image is just showing you what it looks like when they've been predated on. And the reason why is due to its high oil content, the seeds are especially susceptible. And seed predation affects obviously the germination rates and the future of many of these dipterocarp species. So the idea is that we should try and get to the seeds before the insects and animals do. And then once you've germinated your seeds, and this is the stage that we follow for like seedling monitoring. So stage 1, the germinated seed has developed healthy roots. Stage 2, the germinated seed has developed a terminal bud. Stage 3, the germinated seed has lost its cotyledon and is in the late formation of its primary leaf. Stage 4, the seedling has early branching and has developed a short primary root. And then stage 5, a healthy seedling with a good developed primary root. So the idea is that you don't transplant the seedlings until they reach a certain stage past stage 5, which is, you kind of want it to be at least like 15 centimeters tall for it to be transplanted. Okay, so upcoming workshops, as I mentioned, so number 1, we'll be doing a workshop on Dipterocarps 101. It's going to be in-depth about the Dipterocarp species and just in general how to identify the different genera and the different genera, and some to a species level, but not many, because it will require like 2 weeks or maybe a month to go through each and every one. And that will be held on the 6th of August at 10 a.m. The details will soon follow. I haven't sent that out yet. And then the second one will be a nursery management workshop, which will cover what I mentioned earlier, more on the handling of the seedlings and the potting medium and how to manage that in the nursery and pest control and things like that. Great. So that's my presentation. I'm going to open the floor now for Q&A.
My question, can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
At what age will reforest?
Sorry, I can't really hear you.
Okay, let me put something in. Where's that wind?
Yeah, it's very windy where you are.
Just a second.
I'm extremely secluded.
Where are you?
His hideaway, his home hideaway.
By the beach. It's
Oh,
by
I'm
the
very
beach.
jealous.
Is that better?
Yeah, so much better.
So my question is,
How old has the tree to be, or how tall has it got to be before you do your reforestation or putting it back into the forest?
Okay, so usually they, again, it depends on the species. Some species grow and germinate very quickly, and then, but no matter what, it will go through a process of hardening. So let's say it reaches 15 cm, and then we transplant it into a poly bag. So it's first potting medium. And then we allow that to grow to a certain height, let's say like 2 feet, I would say. And then it needs to go through a process of hardening between 6 months to 1 year before it's ready to go into, into for restoration efforts. We take a lot of, I mean, there's different strategies, but we take a lot of care in the nursery part because obviously for us, like, we care a lot about the survivability. Like, we don't really want to plant before it's ready or plant before it's hardened, because then the survivability and the mortality rate is really high. So we try and ensure that it gets like to its peak point, I guess, in the nursery before it goes out to the field. Of course, there will be mortality rates, but we try and avoid that as best we can by allowing it to grow to a certain height and by allowing it to harden over a period of time. Sorry, you're on mute or something. I can't hear you.
The older the tree is, the better chance at survival, would you say? 2 years, 3-year-old?
Yeah, I would say so, yes.
Okay, got it.
It's definitely better than planting a tree that's just like newly established, because then the mortality rate is very high.
Right. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Welcome.
I extend a question after Ishak's one. Upon planting, let's say my merbau I planted at 1.5 to 2 years, how much maintenance do you reckon we need in order to make sure whatever we plant has a higher rate of survival at the site?
Okay, so planting also depends on when you do it. So if you're planting it in the dry season, then you'll need to monitor it a lot closely. If you're planting it in the wet, we recommend planting during the monsoon, like just before the monsoon. So then there's a lot, like heavy amount of rainfall that can sustain it. Where you plant also matters in terms of maintenance. So I know that the forestry department sometimes their maintenance post planting is quite high cost. Like, they will put up shade netting and things like that, but that's not required necessarily if you plant it in the right place. So I guess the sweet spot is the timing and where you plant that requires little maintenance. But in general, it'll be good to kind of check up on it. Like, I mean, we do maybe once a year plot maintenance. I mean, depending on the species, maybe twice a year, and that's mainly to, like, again, depending on the area. If we're restoring like land that's completely barren, then that's different. The strategies are different. If we're restoring somewhere that has like some vegetation, that's also different. And if we're restoring in the forest, it's also very different. So it really depends on where you're restoring. Because like sometimes you would need to clear out the weeds like around it. Sometimes, so yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, I don't have a straight answer for that. That really depends on the location and timing.
Fair enough, thank you. I would like to pull back to the earlier of your presentation, which is good. Thank you.
Sorry, Raza, I can't hear you.
Are you able to hear now?
Yeah, but it's very soft.
Okay. Are you able to hear better now?
Much
better.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Going back to the earlier portion of your presentation in terms of preparing ourselves to go out, a couple of questions. One is specifically on what I'm thinking, like for example in Pahang, with the current situation of not being able to move, I'm relying on some communities there, including the Friends of OAs and whatnot, to give us some feedback, so that helps us to at least estimate when and where we could. Yeah. Then we go into the next stage of either with drone or whatnot. Gives that this obviously gives me another reason to buy a drone. So thank you.
I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, we've been debating about this, and you know it makes sense to have one because it makes all the job easier and more accurate. I do agree with it. So assuming we do that and we go up, and if the timing's right, then we can actually work with the same communities to refine the timing which is needed. Yeah. Then when we go in, we collect. Yes, I saw some reports earlier to say to collect no more than 1,000 per tree, right? And that has to get to the center or your center. Am I correct? In 2-3 days. My question to this is, are all the seedlings going to your center, or can we, for example, at the Orang Asli Center and our center, could we hold on to some so that we could
Yeah,
also
of
do the
course.
blind?
If you have
Okay.
the capacity for it, then yeah, go by all means. It's just that it's a lot of seeds.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
So basically, there's a pokok kapur. So a lot of the images are actually my images. I've been monitoring this one pokok kapur that's been here, and just within like, the first initial fall was like by the wind. It was like the wind blew, and then like maybe 30 seeds came down on the floor, and then like even just that 30 seeds, I'm already like, there's too much. There's already too much to be in my house. So that's what I mean. Like the capacity is it's a lot.
Okay. And
you imagine like one germination tray that's maybe the size of a laptop, right? Depending on the size of the seed, you'll have like maybe 20, 30, in one tray. So imagine like when you have seeds collected from loads of mother trees, that you're talking about in the thousands and thousands of seeds.
Okay. Pulling back again, authorities and whatnot. Are we able to get letters from you preempting this already with the season?
So we have been in contact with the Selangor Forestry Department, and currently they're not issuing forest permits. So I'm not sure like how to get around that if the rules currently like don't allow for permits to be issued. So like we already have all the documentation. We have permits to work during this time, but we can't get permits to enter the forest because they're not issuing it. So literally like it's just on hold at the moment. But if you're working with the Orang Asli,
which is the
then
better
that's
bet?
different, because the Orang Asli villages and the portion of forests that are given to the Orang Asli to look after and live in, those won't be as strict to require like permits to enter a forest reserve, for example. So like let's say if you're working with the Orang Asli villagers, then if they're the ones going in with you, then that wouldn't be as problematic.
Yep.
It's just my way around that, because that's how Zaiman is working his way around that in Perak for seed collections, is that he's letting the Orang Asli community do it, because obviously they have access to their land.
Yeah, that's correct. That's hopefully people like Izadi, Eliana, and whatnot can actually do that, even in Sungai Dua.
Yeah, and I obviously would suggest having a drone, because it's super, super useful. It's a very handy tool. But having said that, if you don't have one, that's not to say that you can't go on the ground to look for flowering seeds. So let's say if you do have a group of Orang Asli that are already kind of like surveying the forest on the ground, then what you really just need is them to be able to, or someone to go with them to be able to take a GPS tag of that tree, so then later on you can go.
Yeah. Okay, no worries. My finance minister has noted approval, so I'm okay with it.
Okay, in which case I would highly suggest the DJI Mavic Zoom, because the zoom lens is really useful.
Okay,
You
I'll
can
get the
zoom in
details
like
from
a
you.
lot closer than you would a normal drone.
Okay. Your next capacity building will include details on possible setups for nurseries and what to look at, and how the basic systems and the parameters of how to set up a system.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Benny will be covering nursery management workshops. So he'll be covering like pros and cons of different types of germination beds. He'll be covering pros and cons of different medium. So like medium for germination, like with the sand, and medium for potting, let's say your first mix of transplant and things like that. So he'll be going in a lot more detail in terms of nursery management.
Okay.
And that's expected to be in mid to late August. So in about three weeks or so.
Good. My current plan is to look at after 1st of August or the week August, at least hopefully things cool down a bit. But obviously I got to rely on friends like in Muazzam Shah and people who have personal farms that may have these trees. If it's yes, then the next level is to get myself out onto this area with approval of pertanian or whatever, and then do the seed collection and identify digitally with you guys. And if it's yes, then we do the collection, leave some for them to help propagate on site, take some for us and pass the rest to you guys. That's the game plan right now.
Okay.
Possible 3 sites.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be if you just keep me in the loop. Maybe one of the TRCRC researchers can go with you or something like that.
Okay, can do. Maybe we can request that there's one person by the name of Anjuli. I can request for.
What about species that grow on limestone? There are certain, there's a Meranti, I know, that is on the island that grows on limestone, and it isn't a large tree, but because of a limestone environment, it's a tree that does well in city environments because a city is really a limestone habitat. So in the island of Langkawi, we go through a 3-month dry season, and the heat on these rock formations are unbearable. But these trees are so hardy; they do quite well here. And I remember sending some seeds to James Kingham. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah. Is it Lagostromia lankawenensis?
Lagostromia, no, yeah, we have Lagostromia lankawensis, yes, but this is a Meranti species. It's, I believe, a Shora, one of the Shoras, yeah. But I'll have to check my records again and see what exactly that species. It isn't a very tall tree, so, and its ideal planting environment has to be something similar, I suppose, for it to do better.
Definitely. So, I mean, for us, what we try and do in terms of like restoration, we tend to look at the forest composition and the species composition of like nearby areas to make sure that it's like, as close and similar as possible. And also we try and ensure that we keep in mind like what the needs are of certain species. Like obviously we're not going to plant a peat swamp species in like a montane forest, so it really it does depend on the species in terms of like location of planting.
Do you have any special plants that you don't want, for example, like forest on limestone? Do you not want that?
Maybe
Where's
not
your
mangrove.
Sorry?
A mangrove.
Okay, mangroves are good.
Yeah, I mean, we do have one limestone species that we have successfully conserved quite well, is the Vatica cantanensis on Gunung Kantan in Perak.
I see.
So that's on the limestone hills, and previously Lafarge was mining on that hill, and there was like only 50 known species like left on that hill. So that 1 year it was flowering, so we managed to collect a few hundred seeds, and we still have a stock of those seeds in our nursery now. And we haven't in our nursery, so it's in our nursery in Perak. It's not a limestone nursery, but the seeds are still doing well in about like 800-meter elevation.
I have one question. I'm Zulfika.
Hello?
Yeah, I have one question. You mentioned earlier about hardening process.
Mm-hmm.
So I assume a lot of your saplings, when you transfer back, I assume they'll be going back into the forest. So if they're going back into the forest, the shade is already there. So your hardening process, is it other than hardening against extreme sun?
Well, I mean, even after a hardening process, if we're putting a tree under full sun, it probably won't like it. I mean, different species will require different light requirements. Hardening is more to do with the establishment of the root
replant,
system.
will you not replant back into the forest?
Some do end up going back into the forest. Some end up going into like rehabilitating like forest corridors, wildlife corridors, or wildlife viaducts. So it's not always, it doesn't always go back into a primary or secondary forest. Sometimes it's used to restore land that's, let's say palm plantation or like buffer zones of rivers, so it's like there's lots of different types of land that we may be planting or restoring.
So the hardening process, could you run a bit what things do you, or what process involves?
It's not very much. We just make sure that it grows to a certain height and it lives well in the polybag for a duration of time. So this is so that the root systems become more established, and so it doesn't have a high mortality when it goes into forest.
I see. So
we just leave it in the polybag for a duration of time.
Okay, and you expose it slowly to more sun.
Mm-hmm.
I see. So it's more of sun exposure and development of roots. These two.
Sun exposure is not our primary focus, but it depends on the species. Like if the species does like, they prefer not to be in a shaded environment, then we do move it to higher exposure of light. But the primary is that we leave it in the polybag so the roots establish well.
Isn't that quite long, your hardening process, like 1 year, 2 years?
Yeah, about 1 year.
Don't you think that is rather long?
It is long, but rainforest trees is a long-term process. It's like it takes 30 to 50 years for it to grow to full maturity. So we want to try and ensure that in its early stages, we give it its highest chance of survival later on. And if we can monitor that closely in our nursery in the early stages, then we prefer to do that than just, after 6 months, just put it in the forest and like let it do its thing. So it's just so that, it's a strategy that we take on, that we prefer that as much as possible, we give it the highest chance of survival later.
Okay, so what is the biggest size of polybag during this hardening process, just before you transfer out? What's the size of the polybag like, Is it like something that the local council buy from landscape companies?
Oh yeah, you can get it from any nursery. It's like,
you can. Is it like that size or much
yeah,
smaller?
Yeah. It is that size. It's not like humongous. It's just like, you'll look at like 20 by 20, 24 by 24.
Okay,
it wouldn't be too large. It's not like unmanageable. Like, you're looking at maybe like 6 feet tall, 5 feet, 6 feet tall.
Okay, thanks.
I'm just asking. Anyone knows for merbau trees how long the seeds will remain viable?
Oh, merbau lasts for quite a long time.
A long time. Okay. Because we are planning to go to the Orang Asli community next month, middle next month. But if we cannot get the permission, then maybe we just let them to collect them first.
Yeah, Merbau is a lot. So Merbau is slightly different. So Merbau comes in like a hard shell, like casing, and that allows it to last a lot longer as a seed. The longest I've ever held on to a Merbau without germinating is probably like several months. But once you germinate, they're really fast. Like they grow quite fast to about 20 to 30 cm, quite fast. And then the process after that is very slow. But the germination part is very fast.
On our side, we got some seeds the other day. The longest we had was about 20 months. But obviously the rate of propagation is lower. We tried 100 over the first set. We got about 80% success. The second set, as we went along with 20 months, it goes down to about 40%, 50%.
Okay.
But they're very hardy plants. Okay.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
Yes, Afsa, are you able to provide travel permits? Like I'm in Selangor, and we can't travel more than 10 kilometres. Did you say you have? There has been situations in the past where NGO in different lockdowns have been able to give us letters and say we're doing work for them in the forest. Was that? I thought you said before you had permits. Is that something that's possible for us to get out into the forests now?
We have permits to operate during this lockdown, but the forestry department is not issuing permits to enter the forest at the moment.
But permits to travel, like can you issue letters to us that says we have permission to travel to areas if we can find somewhere we want to look?
Yeah, so where are you planning to go?
Well, I'm not sure. Bukit Chiraka is a forest reserve, but I believe people are going in there. You'd need a permit to collect samples, but people don't tend to get permits to actually enter.
No, they don't.
Yeah. So,
our site Elmina is right by Bukit Chiraka. We had a couple of enforcement officers come by our nursery there and ask us where we got our seeds from. So they are carrying out like enforcement around the area.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what sort of window have we got before you think the seeding will have be in full swing or have completed? Because we must be running out of time.
We are running out of time. That's the problem. I would say the seeds are in full swing now. Like between, I would say like what we've noticed is now. So which means that in about four to 6 weeks time is like our short window to collect. So I'm hoping that the regulations change in the next few weeks at least, like so we can start entering the forest, because otherwise we would have to depend on indigenous communities or private land for collections.
So we really need to start asking around about private locations, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the indigenous land like is not subject to the same I guess permissions, because if the Orang Asli go and collect it, then it's not.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm keeping a very close eye on it. We're keeping in close contact with our forest district officer for Elmina, and as soon as we're able to get the permits, we will.
Yeah. you'll let us know once.
Yeah. So,
So you can-
is it Stephen that's speaking?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And you are in Selangor?
Yeah, I'm in Ulukalang.
Okay.
So, I mean, yeah, 10 kilometers is not far. Well, I mean, we've got a lot of forests around us, but we can't really get to it.
I guess the closest you could go is like finding a high vantage point, maybe on the highway or something, and having a look and see with the binoculars if the trees are flowering heavily there.
Right. Yeah.
And
And
then
do
from
you
there
have?
we can kind of demarcate on a map, like the exact location and where we can have a look.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have other people in Selangor that are active for identifying location? Well, you're in Selangor too, aren't you? So
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So I guess going back to my earlier question, if we found locations that were more than 10 kilometers away, but were on accessible land, like private land or something, would we be able to come through you to get travel permission, do you think, or we can?
Yeah.
Okay.
And probably we would send one TRCRC rep with you.
Well, I would sort of need that because I don't trust my identification. I'm not a local, so.
Okay.
Okay. The other question was about the GPS equipment you use for locating trees. What do you use for the handheld GPSs that you use? The ones.
If we don't use the machine, then honestly, like an iPhone is pretty good. The compass on your iPhone is on iPhone is pretty good, or any GPS location on phones are the quality is really good now. So if you don't have that GPS machine, then
No, I have a GPS unit, but I've actually been quantifying this a bit. I'm a geospatial scientist. I've been quantifying this a bit. Some people's phones can be hundreds of meters out. It's really quite variable.
Oh, really? So far, we've been quite lucky.
Yeah, you might have good phones. Yeah, it depends. You know, like some of my people I work with have got. You know, it's quite variable with the GPS chips in phones. In fact, some phones don't even have GPS chips.
Okay.
They say they do, but they don't.
Yeah. Well, we try and use the machine as often as we can, but sometimes if we have problems with it, then we.
Yeah. So the main machine, the best machine you have, do you know what sort it is?
I don't, but I can get the information for you.
Okay, that'd be good. Thanks. Yeah, just to.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have two different brands, I believe. I can't remember which ones they were.
Yeah,
I can get back to you on that.
Yeah. Okay.
We do know that I know my researchers have one preferred one, but I don't know which brand that one is exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, ease of use is often an issue too with preference, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Raza, similar question. Do you have any leads on Pahang authorities? And second question to that is, do you need for us to identify the jungle first or the site first? Like for example, if I want to go at 2 locations, do I need to identify 2 locations so that your letter says both locations?
Sorry, Raza, I can't hear you now.
How's the status with Pahang authorities? Any leads with Pahang? That's one. And do you need the actual location of the site that I'm going? For example, I'm going to Kara and also I'm going to Mazam. Do I need to identify those 2 sites for your letter of recommendation to say so?
In terms of the forestry authorities, it's best to go to like the district officer themselves, because like they would be the one to issue you the letter. Because if you're entering the forest reserve, it's not like we're not issuing the letter, the forestry is. Like we can issue you a letter to get there, as in like to cross from Selangor to Pahang to carry out the work, but to enter the forest will be a permit from the forestry department.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah. Unless you're going to like the Orang Asli village, then you won't need that. And I believe Zaiman has quite good contact with the Pahang forestry director. So you could perhaps ask him if they might make some exceptions. I don't know. I doubt it though. But I do know that different states, according to like the different phases of MCO, they'll have different rules, right? So it's we have to just keep a close eye and monitor what the changes are. But as far as I know, for Selangor, it's a no-go.
I'm fortunate because I work where my office is. I have to travel, it's in a forest, so I just walk and I collect. So I don't have to face that problem because it's in an office that it's in the forest. So
that's great.
Is
So
that
in
an
Langkawi,
invitation to Langkawi?
is your view of the sea and the ocean?
Oh yes, that's right. My office is right on the beach with a forest backing me.
Oh my goodness.
So right now we've got, I'll just check which one is in which Diptero Cup, I'll double check. Oh, Berangan is dropping.
Now?
Right now, Berangan is dropping, yeah. Chestnuts, right?
Yeah. So yeah, and also in terms of like the flowering across Peninsula Malaysia, I've noticed that Selangor is a bit like slower, like on this side of Peninsula. Like I would say the flowering only just started. But then I know in other places, like in Kedah, it already started flowering like a month ago or like even longer.
The seeds that are falling right now for us is Shora del Bata.
Sorry, what is that?
Shora.
Would you mind typing that in the chat box?
Sure.
Also, I noticed Puan Nurul Shida Sari is here. Hello. We haven't officially met, but we have been talking. Please feel free to say hello.
So there's Shora del Bata, maybe a northern species.
Yeah.
Because we go through a dry season.
That's dropping now?
Yeah. Tons of them. On the road, being crushed by cars.
Oh.
That's the worst.
Okay, I'll expect some from you, Ishad.
Yes,
yeah,
I will.
Please do collect
Thank
and
you,
send
bro.
them over.
So I think this is a northern species. Because of our distinct dry season up north, many of these shoras are confined to the Kedawi zone, yeah? I think.
Yeah.
Can you recommend a good book that we can identify our seeds with, especially those shoras and the Diptero cups?
Frim's most latest plant list book, 2021, is good. I would recommend having that like on you always.
Is that the one with digital? Sorry, is it the one that they released recently?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
They share it freely on the internet, right?
Mm-hmm. You can get a digital copy, a digital book.
Oh, can you send me a link to that, Raza?
Yes, I should have it somewhere.
Okay, thank you.
I'll send you the file. PDF.
Yeah, I would highly recommend that book. If you did have any other like topics of interest, like let's say you wanted to know more about restoration or whatever, there's some also recommendations on that as well.
Another question, if we go in to collect the row cups, are we okay still to collect any other seeds like fruit trees and whatnot?
Of course. We collect as well wild fruit trees. Like if you see that it's like, you know, it's not out of your way or whatever and it's just there. Yeah, we collect as well, wild fruit trees. So Irshad, are you going to be collecting these Sharia del Batas?
Yeah, we are already collecting.
Great.
We have a nursery in a hardening area, and but we also we want to share some with Razak and you guys, and we'll be sending some to you guys.
Yeah, I just looked it up. It's critically endangered.
Right.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Thanks, Ishad, in advance.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're right over the restaurant.
Wow. Don't tempt me anymore. You know, I might just take the next flight there.
Stop hearing me. Okay. So we've gone about 10 minutes beyond what I set aside for this. Do you guys have any further questions or anything else you want me to cover, or any recommendations for what you want to hear about in the next workshops? Like what do you want to learn more of and things like that? Because if I can take note of that, then I can try and cover it in the future.
Can I take this opportunity to shout out to Eliana from Muazzam Shah? Anything you want to ask, Eliana?
No, tak ada apa pun nak tanya. So overall okay lah, cuma sekarang macam dalam proses nak, sebab tak tahu apa-apa lagi, so okay lah dengan info yang Afzal bagi. So kita orang akan start lah cari
Eliana base kat mana?
Ah?
Eliana base kat mana?
Dekat Kampung Peto. Sekarang ke saya kat mana?
Ya.
Dekat Kampung Peto area Muazzam Shah.
Muazzam Shah. Okay, dekat Pahang.
Dekat Pahang.
Mungkin Eliana boleh cuba contact forestry dekat Pahang, maybe district officer kat situ, tanya diorang lah kalau sekarang ni diorang tengah issue permit ke tak. Sebab kalau kita kat sini memang tak boleh.
Oh, okay.
Tapi Eliana is an orang asli in that kampung, and she's the one that has been promoting to protect the 1,000 acres behind her backyard. So I think boleh masuk je, Eliana.
Ya, kalau Eliana punya tempat tu, it's okay lah.
Ya, saya rasa boleh je masuk tempat saya. Pakcik saya selalu masuk lah. So dia mereka pun macam tak tahulah saintifik dia apa. Cuma tahulah kerueng-kerueng, tapi tak tahu jenis apa lagi.
Tak apa. So kalau dia orang tak tahu like specifically like info, just yang paling senang, just ambil gambar clear of the daun, the damar, the what else, and apa lagi dah? The bark. I don't know bark in Malay.
Kulit kayu tu.
Kulit kayu.
Okay.
Yeah. And then boleh ID lepas after. So you just hantar gambar kat kita, and then kita boleh cuba ID untuk you. Kalau you tak tahu exactly what species lah. Tapi kalau Diptera cup senang je sebab you boleh nampak dia ada sayap kan?
Sayap helikopter. So Eliana, with Eliana's kampung, we also have approved a small budget to assist them in the nursery and vegetable garden plots. Cuma we were not able to do it since the last visit about 6 months ago because of the control movement. So Eliana, kalau ada je let me know. I probably use our pertanian license to travel together with TLCLC's letter. Then once we are there, we try to settle because you're already in the community of orang asli. So I think that part semua dah settle lah. Cuma nak tahu ada ke tak ada je. Kalau ada je beritahu. I'll find a way to get there.
Yeah. So maybe sekarang ni yang Eliana boleh buat is check kalau seeds tengah berbunga sekarang. Kalau pokok tengah berbunga, then kita boleh plan lah bila kita boleh masuk, bila kita nak buat collection. Kalau boleh ambil gambar, that's the best way.
Okay.
Irshad did give one comment. Interstate permits to bring in the seeds within Pahang should not be a problem. So if we leave some for Eliana to nurse and nurture the plants, we are good. We can leave some in Bentong PPH and whatnot because they're moving towards their project of restoration or the riparian trees along the Bentuk River. The ones that we bring into Kelang, I guess we'll find a way. We'll find a way. We
By
smuggle
post,
it in.
what about
Yeah,
by post? Do I still need a permit if I send it across different states by post from forestry?
I'm not aware of this. I'm only aware that we need permits to take it out of the forest. That's what they're very fussy about, what you take out of the forest. But once you have the permit to do that, I don't think it matters where it goes.
People, I might have missed this, it might have been already said, are people getting permission to go into the forests in Pahang or Perak?
For me, Stephen, I'm relying on the fact that if the MCO and the permit to travel and getting ourselves into the sites and is an issue, we fall back on find a way to get the travel permits first and work with the local communities like the OAs and personal farms that have possible sites. Then we don't need a permit to collect the seeds.
Right. Okay.
So I'm going along that line now. For the concern of time is as essence now. We only have that window in August, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wondering if whether you have with Seeds Malaysia, you've probably got a good bank of volunteers, I guess. But if you need people to come from Selangor, this part of Selangor, happy to come and help. So
thank you. We'll keep. Yeah, thank you. We'll keep everyone posted with this group so that we can fit in as as much as we can to make sure that we get maximum results.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, is Bernard Eng that's here the one who's in Elmina? Bernard?
Hi.
Hi, Bernard. Is that the Bernard I'm thinking of?
Yes, it's me. I'm putting out my video.
Hello.
See Avza.
Hi. We unfortunately have not had a chance to meet yet, but you have met my team on many occasions.
Yeah, I do. I'm keeping in touch with Razak and see what we can do.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I know you're going into Bukit Charka and stuff, but unfortunately for us, we have to be a little bit on the side of caution.
Razak and I had a conversation this morning. We were thinking about University Malaya. There's a lot of littoral cups trees itself there.
I see. Do you know whereabouts? The one in town?
I think in University Malaya has one of the biggest forests in Kuala Lumpur. It's inside. It's called the Rimba Forest. If you're aware, I'm not sure whether you're aware or not.
Is it the one like in the center of town, like near Federal Hill?
No, it's UM is the university, the Himalaya University.
Is the one at the Bangsa Gate. So
Yeah.
it's the back after the swimming pool, and it stretches way until Bukit Lanjan, I believe.
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
And a lot of property developer try to encroach this place, you know.
Yeah. Okay, I see it.
So
UPM.
actually, there are a few couple tree just alongside of the UM roadside. There's also a few of them just beside the hospital. All of us will pass by that road, the hospital UM, and yeah, why not? And I'm very close with the people in UM. I think everyone here live nearby and can go there together.
Yeah, it's really like so close to my house.
Correct.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so there's another person here, Shida Sari, who I'm in contact with at the moment. She's on mute, but she's here. So I'm trying to get permission as well.
Hi, Abza. Sorry,
Hi.
I'm new.
Nice to finally see you as well. We haven't been able to see each other, but hello.
Hello.
So yeah, we're trying to get access to Ayer Hitam Forest Reserve that's under UPM. So we kind of have to find our way around the, this time sensitive period that we can't enter forests. That we have to look for other forests that we can enter. But yeah, if you have a contact at UM, then I'm happy to help you with the support letter from TRCRC on this, because we've already prepared one for UPM.
Sure. Can I have that letter, please, Hafza?
Yeah, I can. I'll get my team to be in contact with you.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, Shida, I don't know if you. I don't know if to call you Nurul or Shida. What do you prefer?
Just call me Shida.
Shida. Okay.
Shida.
If you received the email, I think it was yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, I received it.
Okay. So I'm not sure for UPM how they are like in terms of.
I think they okay with our idea, but the person in charge or the officer in charge for that project currently positive for COVID.
Aduh.
That's my friend tu. Baru hari ni lah.
Yang officer.
Yeah, the officer Kamaru Izzuan kan.
Aduh.
That one positive for COVID. So I think maybe some delay on it, but we already sent the letter and proposal to Dean's office, right? So I think maybe the project will be passed to other officer lah.
Okay. So kalau macam tu, like will we need like a official letter from UPM, like response balik, dia orang cakap like all clear boleh masuk?
Yeah, we need to wait for their response first, and they will assign another officer in charge for this project.
Okay. And are they looking like they're happy to collaborate?
So far they are happy to collaborate, but as you know, this UPM is quite they very particular in the procedure, the permit and all the documentation, so maybe it takes longer to before we get approval to enter the forest.
What other protocols do we have to follow?
I think maybe in the COVID time, maybe I don't know, maybe additional requirement from the UPM. I'm not sure yet, but we will wait for them to respond first, and we will see what the requirement other requirement they want from us.
Okay. Are you in direct contact with the dean?
No, but I'm direct contact with the officer in charge, but I will ask him after, because today he was sent to Maeds for quarantine. So maybe I will ask him who's the person in charge for this project.
Yes, please. That would be great.
Okay.
We're so time sensitive now, kan?
Yeah. Okay, before I want to share with you guys. Before I have what we call it textbook for digital card identification that I'm using it from student. It was published by Frame. The name of the book is Pocket Checklist of Timber Trees. Are you aware of it?
I think we have it as well.
And the one is manual forester manual. Manual forester of Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. This is by Symington. That is old book, but it's quite good for Detroit identification. I can't share the picture with you because I'm using the mobile mode, so I don't know how to share screen with you guys. So
That way it's okay. Maybe if you can send like pictures of the front cover.
yeah, but
Later you WhatsApp lah.
later I WhatsApp you for the title of the book.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, so it looks like we're making some good headway. We'll follow up on the progress with UPM, and then Bernard, if I don't know if I have your email, but you can just drop me a line or email me, and I can send you. Oh, got it. Very efficient.
Can I just say, I'm a geospatial person, so if there's any mapping support I can do, I don't want to promise too much because things are busy, but so I can do some, I can get very coarse contours. I don't have access to government data sets, but I can do.
We actually have really good data sets for all of Peninsula Malaysia already. We have a data executive that's covered all the forests basically in Peninsula based on government data sets.
Excellent. Yeah.
So no worries, but thank you so much for your offer.
Okay.
Could I also invite Cik Yah from Kelantan Main-House Camp? Cik Yah ada apa-apa soalan yang mungkin Cik Yah nak tanya ke ya? Up in Kelantan and hopefully can get on to some Terengganu jungle. Cik Yah? Main-House Camp. Kalau tak ada, tak apa. Let's move on. Okay, she's not responding. It's okay. Over to you back, Afza.
Okay. Any last comments from anyone? For me, I think it's quite straightforward now. I hope that my presentation was clear for you guys. If you did have any other questions, you have my email, so you can just ping me and I'll respond quite quickly. Other than that, I think we are making good progress with trying to get access to land. So either via UPM and Bernard with UM, and then the Orang Asli and the indigenous communities. And we can see from there, obviously, because we are time sensitive. But otherwise, yeah, apart from that, if there's nothing else, I think we can conclude today's meeting.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to your talk on the first.
Yeah.
Yeah, promote.
Yeah, so you guys, it's so embarrassing. So on Friday at 10 a.m., I'll be speaking on the FRIM webinar, which is the second session of the 100 Million Trees campaign by the federal government. I'll be covering community-powered conservation. I'll be talking about different case studies of how we use communities to fuel our conservation efforts. Obviously, because the heart of our success is in the community. I will also be mentioning a voluntary dipterocarp seed project that is one of the part of the title of my talk. So I will be covering you guys as well. But yeah, so if you want to hear more about that, and also FRIM will be covering a lot of stuff on gathering planting material. So I would suggest for you guys to attend. It'll be quite interesting because you'll hear their protocols and how they do their seed collections as well. So aside from what I've told you from TRCRC's perspective, it might be useful to learn what FRIM does as well. And then if we're also doing a follow-up webinar from that on the 6th of August. Oh my God, I got it wrong. So the 6th of August is not the Diptera Carp 101. I'm so sorry. The 6th of August is a webinar I'm doing with the Habitat Foundation, where it's going to be case study examples from the researchers themselves. So it'll be covering like 3 different case studies, 2 in Perak, and 1 in Kinabatangan in Sabah. And they're going to be talking about how the indigenous communities are working alongside their conservation projects and restoration efforts. So that's going to be a lot more in depth of the community. I'm going to be just a short 20-minute session talking about it as like an introduction to the main event. And then the Diptera Carps 101, will be in August as well, but I haven't set a date for it. It will probably be in the same week. If you guys are okay with that.
Excellent. I'll try avoid on the 3rd afternoon. I have a 15-minute slot with KPKT. They're interested to find out what and how we did our little food forest experimental plot. And I'll be talking about the layering. That's on the 3rd, 2:30 to 3:30 is the session. I've got 15 minutes slot just to share on food forest and food garden.
Oh, interesting.
Just to share because they're not familiar with the shift between urban farming and food forest, which has more advantage. So they want to hear about it, and hopefully this gets some authorities to find out more and get on with the possibilities of creating pocket food forests in urban plots. So that's a whole idea.
Great. Just send over the info, and I'll ping you guys an email for the information for the following webinars coming up.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks,
you everyone
everyone.
for your time today. Thank you so much for your
Bye-bye.
interest as well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Great.
Thanks to you.
Thank you,
See you
Raza.
later, Stephen. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it.